Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Perception Paradox podcast. My name is Zivile, and I'm your host. It's great to have you back. And if you haven't subscribed yet on your favorite channel, either it's YouTube, Spotify, or Apple Podcast, it's your time to do. With every subscription, you make sure that we reach more people with the real stories, real people, and real challenges. And today's episode is focused on a massive content platform that started initially more as a job platform and then turned itself into a huge network where you can connect with basically anyone you want, even with the Snoop Dogg. So, Snoop Dogg, if you're listening to that, I would love to welcome you on Perception Paradox podcast. So, getting back to the topic, LinkedIn is no longer just a place to post. It's where people build trust before opportunities happen. And that's how we met with this episode's guest, Dani. I just saw him doing some cool stuff on LinkedIn. It caught my attention, and I thought, let's have a conversation. You've been creating some cool content because everyone is posting right now, founders, CEOs, athletes, stars. But here is the paradox. We had never had more content, and yet it has never been harder to know what actually works. Because the people who matter most might not like your post, or they might not comment, they might never show up in your notifications, but they might be reading in silence, they might be watching, and sometimes, or quite often, even buying. So today I'm joined by Dani Markovits, CCO at Shake Content and former LinkedIn community lead, who spent years inside LinkedIn helping creators, executives, and athletes understand how influence is built. We talk about why LinkedIn has moved beyond job updates, why founder led content is becoming a serious business channel, and what AI is changing. Also, why comments are underrated and why your real audience might be completely invisible. So, this is a conversation about content, trust, and what it means to build a voice in a noisy world. So, let's dive in. Real people, real stories, and real challenges that break the status quo. I'm your host, Zivile, and welcome to Perception Paradox. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Perception Paradox. And today I'm very excited. I have Dani Markovits with me, who is, I would say, the face and the brand and the voice of overall LinkedIn community, right? From inside to outside, from different roles. And we're going to dive into some very interesting topics. And Dani, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Zivi. Great to be here. I was looking forward to catching up with you. Thanks for the intro. I wouldn't say I am the face of the LinkedIn community, but I would say I'm one of the faces. Yeah, would love to chat more and see where this brings us.
Absolutely. Well, you're one of those LinkedIn guys, so
Take it.
definitely
Yeah,
one of the faces.
I should be less humble. I've been told
Yeah,
that before. So
I think so.
this is a good day to do that.
Yes, so that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna celebrate your success, your work, your curiosity, and learn a bit more what you have learned being in overall advertising for such a long time, because your career started even before LinkedIn. You've been always what I've saw that in the growth marketing, different kind of angles and wearing different hats. So I guess a good opening question would be, before you became that content guy, that I would say storyteller and character about the communities on LinkedIn, what did you think the influence really was? Like, what was for you influential before all the LinkedIn game?
Great question to start. Yeah, before LinkedIn, I had a chance to work at another media slash sports company called Minute Media. It was a great opportunity and experience because I got a chance to join when I was younger and the company was small, and that's where I started my media or content journey. And to your question, I would say, yeah, I think during those times and even before, I was very naive as to what, who could cause, who can be influential, who can stand out, what was needed. Uh, and I thought you needed to be famous, or you needed to be the biggest expert, or you needed to be um, a CEO in order to be influential. I didn't really understand that the world was becoming more flat and more decentralized, and that people had power. So I thought the power was with traditional players, with the central players, with the gatekeepers, and I completely changed my mind about it, and we can speak more about that today. And LinkedIn really was the turning point about those changes. So yeah, that's how this started.
Mm, that's very inspiring. But you're mentioning that it completely changed your mind. So maybe we can dive straight into what was the moment that changed your mind, because you're also the one behind this LinkedIn community program that's been rolling out a few years back on a very fast speed and kind of shifted the content game, and I would say the influencing game or top voices when it comes to the different ecosystem and communities, and that we can see it in the startups, we can see it in the corporates, uh, and so on.
Yeah, I would say let's talk about that, and a few things come to mind. First, for context, yeah, I was lucky enough to join the LinkedIn community team back of almost 5 years ago, which is crazy. It was a new team, so I was super excited. It was like LinkedIn's new baby. It was like a startup within LinkedIn, so that was really cool. There was no real structure, everything was new. LinkedIn was not seen as a place where community was created, or where creators was really like not something you would connect with LinkedIn. And I was one of the first ones to be able to to start that world here in the UK and in Europe, and it was an exciting time. And the way I see it, my team was there to change what LinkedIn was. That was not the official capacity, but that's how I see it now looking back. And I think it happened. Definitely, the platform became much more than a place to look for a job, which was initially, I think, what LinkedIn was. I talking about myself. I only used to open the LinkedIn. I didn't. I don't even think I had the app. Right. I didn't even use it. But when I was looking for a job, you go to LinkedIn and you apply to jobs. And suddenly I started seeing people using it in the subway, in the train, in the street, because I was always looking. And I think a big part of that was, not to take all the credit, but our team doing work with a bunch of new creators, new experts, new voices, and we were bringing them here to LinkedIn. We were helping them talk about uh, things that were relevant to the professional world. And slowly but surely, we made LinkedIn a different place. And going back to the question at the beginning, a few things clicked really early on. One, that I thought before, that in order to be a creator, you needed to be creative, or you needed to be a YouTuber, or you needed to be young. And at least for LinkedIn, that was not the case. I think anybody can be a creator. It doesn't mean you need to necessarily make that your own profession, but anybody that is sharing their own thoughts, their own thinking, their own perspective, and putting something out there is, at least in my eyes, some sort of creator. So that was my first awakening. And I started sharing content, and I never thought, and sometimes I still struggle to see myself as a creator, but I think we are, right? I'm creating ideas. And I think LinkedIn was the perfect place for this. Second thought connected to this, that I also had a misconception, was that you needed, again, to be the biggest expert or the most knowledgeable to talk about something. But on LinkedIn, and I had a lot of experience, and I was lucky to help a lot of different CEOs, but also students or people starting their careers and working together. You notice that everybody has something to say. Uh, Even if you're 15 years old or 10 years old, you might potentially have some knowledge that me and you maybe don't have, maybe about Pokemon cards. And I'm just throwing out.
Yeah.
But if you're able to talk about any topic in a unique way, you can be influential. So that's two things that really changed my mind about this world.
Wow. How was it building this kind of a new concept when it comes to communities and in general being a part of a startup of such a already big company. The dynamics, it's also like very different. Where do you begin? Like, oh yeah, let's build a community and let's try to rephrase how LinkedIn is functioning.
Yeah, great question. Where did it even begin? I don't think I'd even know. We were a bit all over the place, but that was a bit of the beauty of it. It was literally a blue ocean. We had full responsibility of who do we want to work, who do we want to support as creators. There was no real plan, there was no real strategy. Then that, of course, matured and things changed. But I remember at the beginning reaching out to people and saying I'm from LinkedIn and we're starting this creator program, and people were very confused. They didn't understand the point of LinkedIn and why they should be sharing on LinkedIn. We've had a lot of like no's or like LinkedIn is cringy. LinkedIn is not a place for creators, or LinkedIn is not a place to share ideas. And I think, yeah, to be honest, I remember the only content we used to see at LinkedIn was the classic I got promoted, or the humble, as we say, the humble and brags, people just promoting themselves. And I think that's still happening, but much less. So I think definitely there has been a change, and I know we're going to speak more about it, but there's been a lot of cooler people as well joining, athletes, influencers, creators, more diverse type of people. And it suddenly became a whole ecosystem. So, and the last thing I would say, yeah, that startup vibe was really cool. We didn't have much budget, which you might find surprising because it was LinkedIn. But on the other hand, that allowed us to be more scrappy, more creative, more hands-on, more resourceful, and yeah, it was a really cool time.
What are you most proud about your time at LinkedIn?
I would say building my own brand. I didn't have any idea how to do that. I didn't even thought that I was gonna do that. At some point, I thought to myself, listen, I'm helping all of these people share content. Why don't I do this for myself, right? It sounded obvious, but it wasn't. Not many people, even until now, I'm surprised that not so many LinkedIn employees are as active building their brands on LinkedIn, which you would expect more to do it. I think that's changing, but I was early to that, and I really decided that I was going to do that. It was going to benefit myself, but also LinkedIn. And I think that's happening, by the way, across many companies. And the second thing, and I can take some credit for this, I was super early on the LinkedIn sports opportunity. At the beginning, I remember bringing this internally, and there was no real, people were not really sure about it. LinkedIn and sports was not really a good mix. It was not obvious. I also remember reaching out to athletes and footballers. I'm a huge football fan, and telling them, and they were like laughing about us in a good way, I would say, but they were not taking it seriously. And slowly, again, that started changing, and now I feel the momentum, and I think LinkedIn is the next big platform for sports. Yesterday, for reference, there was the NFL draft in the US. I'm not a big American football fan, but the first person who was chosen in this draft, a guy called Fernando Mendoza. He started on LinkedIn a few months ago, and he like really sharing his journey. He was not yet famous, and now you can see his posts, and we can put them out here. The engagement he gets, and I think yesterday after he got selected, he even changed in real life on TV his job description, saying that he was now selected. He has a new employer, basically. There's a lot of things happening in sports that we can really get into, but those two things really make me proud looking back, and I'm happy I was uh, early in taking advantage of these trends.
That sounds really exciting. And talking about sports, yeah, when I saw one of your LinkedIn posts, I think, or somewhere about you creating the voice for Lewis Hamilton. Excuse me? That's so cool. How did that happen? Was it the beginning of you shifting into the sports, or are you reaching out to athletes to help them to build their positioning on LinkedIn? And what's then the mode for them? Like, why would should they be on LinkedIn?
Yeah, Yeah, Lewis Hamilton, of course, is a cool story. I didn't get a chance to meet him personally. I'm gonna be honest.
Never
Other
say
athletes,
never.
never say never. Other people I did, and some of them came to the office, which was really cool as well. Because I always told them, "You're always invited to come to the office," and they said, "Yes, yes." But one guy, for example, Patrice Evra, big footballer, he suddenly said, "Okay, I'm going," and I was like so nervous. And he came to the office, and people started noticing him, and it became like chaos in the office, but it was really cool. Um, but with Louis, yeah, at some point I said I'm gonna start bringing the biggest names to the platform, and I started reaching out to all of them. I was trying to find their emails. I was really bombarding them with messages and trying to find the right angle and the right hook and trying to find the right parties. And I think with Louis, I was able to find one of his agencies. And most of these people work with various stakeholders and agencies, and it was a really cool story because we were able to bring him, and one of the focuses with Louis was promoting his foundation, his charities. And yeah, of course, as soon as Louis got into the platform, you can imagine how fast he grew. And I think with Lewis and with most big athletes, it's I don't think they're looking for a job. More about yeah, the way I see it is they are much more than just athletes or drivers or players. They are, and I think we spoke together about this, CB. They are parents, they are mothers, they are humans, they have business goals, they want to invest, they want to be in different corporations and boards. So I think LinkedIn is the place to position themselves. Lewis, of course, is an outlier because he's probably the best in his sport in the history. So LinkedIn probably doesn't really move the needle, I think, even though it does. But for most other athletes, people don't know them. People don't think they are business people, that they have ideas. They're so smart. Athletes, people think they're only athletes, right? Many of like to get there, you only need you need talent, but you also need the mindset. So that's the things that we bring to LinkedIn, and that I was pushing to make it happen. And yeah, I think they really enjoy that part, that they can be more human. And the ones that I've spoken to, LinkedIn has been the only platform where they actually much more on it, that they're actually seeing what's happening, that they are seeing the comments. Whereas on TikTok and Instagram, they probably have other people helping them, and it's much more about sharing the highlights of the game. But on LinkedIn, they are doing it themselves more. So that was really
Hmm.
good. And yeah, it's still early, but we can share a few examples of people that are doing it really, really well.
How are they doing that? What kind of content works, and what kind of cases do you see succeeding on the platform?
Someone that comes to mind always, because I got to know him in some capacity, and he's a great guy, especially considering he scored a goal in the World Cup final. Mario Götze, German footballer. He responds to my WhatsApps when I send him messages, and like he doesn't like he's a legend, and he's still responding messages and being nice and super humble about things. But what he's done really well, and also credits to his team, he really talks about he really likes investing in VCs and companies and the startup ecosystem in Europe, and he constantly talks about that and about his investments. And what's been interesting is that I think a lot of the founders and companies have approached him to invest on their companies because of his LinkedIn activity. So I know he's been an investor in some of the best companies in Europe, which are really taking over. So he's a great example of someone that's really authentic, that's not only sharing kind of inspirational things or like bake stuff. He really goes deep, and he goes and understands what's happening. So we definitely recommend you and our listeners to check him out.
Hmm.
He's one of the best, I feel. But now there's a lot more in the NBA, F1, a lot of Olympians, um, a lot of people doing really cool things.
Yeah, I love what you're saying, and it's not only sports, but I've been noticing people from the cinema industry, from the
Snoop
theater, from like so many different verticals
Snoop
that
Dogg
before you would, yeah.
is on LinkedIn, which is so funny because when he joined, we thought it was like a joke, but yeah, he's there. And if you tell me 5 years ago that Snoop Dogg would be sharing content on LinkedIn, I would probably laugh at you.
I mean, Snoop Dogg, he is like just making his different channels optimization at the best level. I think when it comes to content distribution and growth and this kind of a bit of virality strategy, he's doing some good stuff and partnerships.
100%.
S- I'm actually following him on LinkedIn. I was like, are you real? No, no, no. So
I think
talking
I sent
about real, you
sorry,
send him a message? No, no,
a
no
connection
worries.
request, but I don't think I've been accepted yet.
It's okay. We can try harder. Snoop Dogg, if you're listening to us, I think we have a couple of offers with Danny. You're definitely
We'll,
welcome to the podcast, and that Danny invites you
we'll
to talk about your LinkedIn strategy.
we'll get him here
Talking
next time.
Okay, talking about the strategy in general, like, so you are working right now in Joint Shake, and also the way you announced your transition to the team was a
Right, I
very
forgot about that.
creative way, right? And it gained a lot of traction. What made you to make the video and to create completely different announcement form of you choosing a new opportunity in your career span?
Yeah, and I
And how did you
forgot
come
that.
up with that?
Yeah, also connected to sports again. You see
Mm-hmm.
that thing. So Fabrizio Romano, another super famous football influencer or journalist, maybe the biggest one out there. We also became friendly through LinkedIn, and I don't know how much you've seen, but he's famous for breaking out stories with a famous tagline called "Here we go." So I thought, wow, I want to do something different, and we can speak about that in general. I think how LinkedIn is changing, but I think marketing and personal brand and LinkedIn is becoming less serious in a good way, more fun, more, yeah, different. So I thought I don't want to do the classic post about I'm happy to announce I'm joining Shake. You know that everybody does this. So I said I'm gonna try something different, and I asked Fabricio to do like a short video announcing my transfer from LinkedIn to Shake, and he was super cool about it and did this video, and I got super excited. And yeah, it was that, but it was in a more it was an announcement post, but in a more original way. And it did really well. It brought a lot of attention to me, to Shake. So that was really cool. And I think it's a good segue to what we're seeing on LinkedIn, to what we're doing in Shake, which, by the way, we are a LinkedIn marketing agency helping different executives, leaders, founders win on LinkedIn. Mostly focus on B2B. And I think B2B is an interesting thing to speak because I think it's really
Mm-hmm.
changed LinkedIn. People say that B2B in general it has a reputation of being boring, of being super traditional, but I think brands are really changing that mindset. And you can see it on LinkedIn with a lot of brands how they are doing cool content. And I think people are finally understanding that it's all about people. And people, even if you are in B2B, you also want to be entertained, you also want to laugh, you also want to connect, you also want to feel. So that's really happening. And I think this is just the beginning of that new, new, new world.
Mm-hmm. So we're seeing more entertainment and more loose communication rather than very like tights and costumes vibe on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a few things. One, and which was a big focus of me on LinkedIn as well, is people first instead of like the company pages or the company channels, which I think are important. But in the past, all of the communications came through the company, super corporate, super, as you said, bottom tie and very polished. But now more and more CEOs and more executives are coming to the platform and breaking the news and talking. People want to hear from the face. They don't want to hear necessarily from the company logo. And more people are being more authentic, just taking out a phone and sharing some thoughts without too much overthinking. And I think that's what people want to hear from. But more than that, a few brands like Clay comes to mind, and a few others are doing video series. They are doing some funny stuff. Um a few examples that come to mind in the last few weeks. Wiz, which is the famous Israeli cybersecurity company, they did a partnership with Wiz Khalifa because their name is Wiz, so you can understand the synergy. And they sell cybersecurity. On paper, they're the most boring company, but they are really good at marketing and standing out. And you wouldn't associate B2B companies with Wiz Khalifa. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there are more and more humor in the platform. There are more and more memes. I'm a big fan of memes. People think memes are the most low quality content, and they can be, but I think if you do a meme well, it really showcases that you understand your audience. So I'm seeing a lot more of that, and again, um, a lot more B2B companies doing standing out as well, and doing things that are a bit more funny, a bit more provocative. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a good shift.
And what do you think those B2B companies are not doing enough yet on LinkedIn?
I think many are still not waking up to that. They think B2B, or they're still I think they're still very afraid, and they still think there's a big risk on letting your company, your employees, your people advocate for you, be the voice of the company, letting employees build their personal brands. But I think the biggest risk is not letting them. So the risk is actually the opposite. So I still think most companies are still not waking up to the fact that you need to stand out, you need to grab attention, especially with everything that's happening with AI. I think everything is becoming commoditized, and the last thing that will be, hopefully, or will never be replaced by AI is people, personality, stories. And I'm a big fan of stories. So I think most companies are still not doing that as well as the ones I spoke about.
And what are your best ingredients for a good story? Everyone has some. Three non-negotiables to have a story really well
I think
said.
a good story doesn't need to be always about something crazy that happened. It's more about the daily things that someone has noticed that not many people have noticed. So it can be something about a commute or about the office, and just things that are subtle, things that people can relate with, and more importantly, that they are real to you and to your audience. So it's finding the right story for the right audience, um, in the right personality, in the right format. But yeah, it's so subjective what makes a good story. But I would say people think that you need something crazy for you to happen, for you to tell a story. And I think that the challenge and the skill is to tell story about everyday things, about things
Mm-hmm.
that are go overlooked. I think
Yeah.
that's the key.
How much personal should we get? Because sometimes we see, for example, what did I learn from getting married? Or what did I learn from making pasta in Italy?
Yes.
Where do you think, where is that balance?
Yeah, I think it's subjective. I don't think it's like there's no rules. I do think LinkedIn, hopefully, it shouldn't become famous. I think it's good. Facebook, I think there's always room for the personal, because again, people want to hear from you as a person. But I think there always has to be a reason, or some value or some purpose. So just sharing a picture of you and your dog without any context, um, just for engagement, I don't think that should be the objective. But if you can share a picture with your dog, and honestly, genuinely, there's a reason, and there can be, right? I think that's fine. But I think the way I see it, it's more bring your personality, and not necessarily your personal, baggage.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, there's a lot of overlap nowadays. But yeah, that you got a divorce, or like, that's less of my approach to LinkedIn. But that I'm a father and I like sports, and like that's part of my professional um, personality. So I think that's definitely something people should lean into as well.
Mm-hmm.
But not to
And
force it. And I agree with you. There was a famous post that the crying CEO became a whole thing, and maybe because it felt too forced. It felt too forced, too produced. Maybe that was the case. Maybe it wasn't, but that's what people noticed, and maybe
mm,
yeah.
oh wow. So you're working with Shake with many different people, executives, companies. How, as someone who is involved in the different, I would call them maybe customer personas and different tone of voices, how do you keep it authentic and how do you make it as close as possible from that represented company or person perspective?
Yeah, that's definitely a challenge that we see, and I think most companies that support or help execs or leadership share content is trying to find that balance, right? That's a problem I'm seeing today is that, yeah, with AI you can definitely see one when content was created completely with AI, and people are definitely noticing this more and more, and two that it's not that person creating that content and it's not ideal and it doesn't feel authentic. So at least for us at Shake, we have a really good process of, I think the key is to enable the client, or in this case, if I work with you, enable you to share your thoughts, your insights, your personality. So it's actually you, it's that person actually saying these things. It's your insights, it's your thoughts, it's your opinion. And then maybe us or companies that work on this type of work can do the heavy lifting, can package or can help with copy or with video, but ultimately that person has to be involved. That's super important. It's not, yeah, we're helping you with the content and just you don't hear from us. There need to be involvement, they need to be invested, and it's a partnership. Likewise, in big companies, if you're going to create content for the CEO, in order for this to work, the CEO has to be involved. So I think a lot of people don't find the right balance.
So what I'm hearing, it's a lot about co-creation. Actually, it's not just someone generates for you your strategy and the post, but if
That's
you
how,
want great results, you have to put the effort as well.
yeah, 100%.
Yeah. Easy to share always, hard to commit sometimes
I
with a
agree.
limited amount of time.
But I think people are waking up to the power of LinkedIn. Even I've seen it since I left, that it's an important channel,
Yeah.
and especially for, I think a lot of, yeah, a lot of you get a lot of business from it, but you're also getting a lot of people don't understand. You can get a lot of talent, and employees decide where to work based on what the people are saying on LinkedIn. They can feel the personality, whereas the CEO is active or not. What is he saying? What is she doing? So it's more and more people are prioritizing LinkedIn and doing it well. So that's been really good to see.
hmm And what about the current or recent changes of reachability on LinkedIn, and what kind of metrics do matter? Because I also saw that you share, but I also noticed that we have those secret followers kind of thing that people like read it, engage it, but they don't really fully interact. How is the landscape changing, and how should we right now proactively approach the communication on LinkedIn?
Yeah, there's been a lot of changes and a lot of chat about changes on LinkedIn. There's always, I think, changes in these platforms. But I think the last big algorithm change, and I don't want to get too much into that because I also am not an expert, but I think from my understanding, it was a positive change, even though people always try to see the negative. But the big change was around what the feed, what is it showing you, meaning in the past, most of the content you would see was based on who you follow and who you're connected with, which makes sense in a way. But LinkedIn, like other platforms, try to become a bit more semantic, meaning uh, trying to understand more the context of um, who you are, what's your industry, and what type of content will you benefit from. Um, so it's now more about as well the person sharing the content. Who is that person? What are they doing? Are they an expert? And not only about the content. So it's two things, um, which is it's really key. It's a big change. So it's more about what you wanna see, and less about the graph, the social graph. Um,
hmm
and that I think has led to better matching between the author of the post and the reader, but also more, which potentially leads to less reach. You're reaching less people, but hopefully you're reaching the right type of people. So that's, I think, smart. On LinkedIn, I always said it's less about going viral and reaching millions of people. we always like to do that. We always like to see massive numbers, and it can happen every once in a while, but it's not that point. You want to get in front of the right type of people. So one of the last posts I made was around that people are complaining that, yeah, reach is down, but in general, in some metrics, engagement is up, which means again that more people are potentially seeing, the right people are seeing your content, the proportion of people that matter. So there's more clicks, which is what you want. More people are maybe seeing your profile. If you share a link to your website or something you're promoting, maybe more people are clicking on it. And so that's really encouraging. So it's important to see the big picture. And I think the metrics that matter on LinkedIn are, yeah, less about likes, but maybe more about comments, maybe more about saves and shares. That really means that your content is resonating. But more than that, I think it's the things that you cannot always measure on numbers. How many people are maybe contacting you a few weeks after? For me, the biggest validation is when people tell you in the offline world, I love your content, or I see you everywhere, or your post about this really resonated with me. And my point about it is that you never see these people on the likes, and you're like, who are you? I've never seen you. And we forget there's also the lurkers or invisible engagement, but people are still seeing it.
Hmm.
So it's an important reminder. And um, yeah, I'm happy with the changes, even though I've seen less numbers on my posts, but I'm seeing the right type of people hopefully engaging. So that's what's happening lately.
Very interesting. Thanks for sharing. It kind of also leans back into the overall, perhaps if we take into consideration startup ecosystem or even other industries, like we're leaning more towards community and smaller audiences that are kind of your loyal customers, clients, and fans, you name it. It depends on the area. Talking about this viral and the content, we see a big rise of or push on the LinkedIn ads and also them appearing on the LLM models. So, what's your take on organic versus paid content? Do we really need to start looking into the paid content? Or only in the particular cases, some, let's say, founders or business owners should consider that?
Yeah, I think my take about organic versus paid, and I think, yeah, there's people who are actual experts on paid, and but I think my big point, it's two things that I think are really important. I think they're connected strategies. Most people see them as two different channels. Uh, at least on LinkedIn, the way I see it, organic should be the priority, at least for most people. And also the way I see organic is like a trial, right? You can test your content. You have unlimited shots. There's no risk. I think people a lot of, and we can have another conversation just about the mindset on LinkedIn, because I think there's a lot to unpack there. But if you're gonna put money behind a post, I would say one thing first: put money on a post that has already performed well, that already resonated, that people engage with, that there was a lot of value in it. So it's more of a share thing. So that also goes back to the connection with organic. But more than that, and something I just realized not too long ago, and I think this is for LinkedIn in general, how content, organic content, compounds everything else. So what I mean is, people think, no, I don't need organic, I'm doing paid, which is much more targeted, and yeah, that's fine. But what people don't understand, if you've seen my content or my brand in organic multiple times, and then at some point you see a paid ad, you might be much more willing to engage and to maybe consider buying whatever I'm selling, right? Because you already seen my brand, you already trust me. So it's very much connected. It doesn't live on a silo. If you just see my ad and you don't know me and my brand or my company, the impact is not going to be as strong. So people forget about that.
Mm-hmm.
And that same goes with everything. If I send you an email or a DM and you've seen me, you already see my content, you're going to potentially respond to me more. Whereas if you've never heard about me and I just send you a DM, you maybe will never respond. So that's the power of awareness and of building your brand and of being seen and trusted. So people forget about that.
Yeah, but there's this thing like sometimes we think it's cringe or we have this imposter syndrome. I do recall myself like my first proper LinkedIn post was in 2018, maybe.
Nice.
And I
That
was
was
like
early.
I was overthinking so badly, and I was like, should I edit it? Should I? Now it's hilarious, but then once you get into the rolling carousel, you're just like, okay, I see the value. Let's go for it. So you kind of get out of that, but that first steps are like. Really can be really intimidating what you were mentioning about the trust, about the brand positioning. So talking about those first steps, so let's say for companies you start working with, or founders or even athletes, where do you start, and what would be approximately that timeline to go from zero to hero to someone who has some kind of positioning in the channel?
Yeah, it's a interesting one. First, I would say at the beginning, I always recommend people, and I think what you said is so true. It's like we overthink it, especially on LinkedIn, because it's a professional platform and you're a bit afraid of what people are going to see and say. But again, I think the biggest risk now is not doing anything. Um, Also, it took me a while to understand that nobody really cares about us, about you. The people care about themselves mostly. Um and we like to think that everybody's thinking about us. Like, no. So, but I think that's a good thing. Um, so yeah, at the beginning, it's just I recommend people not to overthink it. It's just a post, right? If nobody saw it, which always people are worried as well, like nobody's gonna see it. I'm gonna get bad engagement. Okay, so if nobody saw it, nothing changed, right? So it's also how you see it. But don't overthink it. Get into the habit and consistency of posting. Something I recommend is trying to break it in pieces. So I thought that in order to share something, you needed to be super, you have to come up with a very original idea and come up with the most unique concept, and I think that's hard, right? You cannot do that every week. So just talk about what's happening in your world. Look at your calendar. What did you do last week? Who did you speak with? What happened during your job? Everybody has something going on a week. So just talk about that. What are you learning? What questions are you asking? What's happening in your industry? So it doesn't need to be the most substantial thing. Just try to add some take, some opinion, and get into the habit of it. And ultimately, people just wanna hear what you have to say, and slowly you can start positioning yourself as what you wanna be positioned. Going niche it's a good strategy. So I have someone that I always think about who used to work at an airport. Very unusual setting, and he started to speak about airports, what happens there, what are the behind the scenes. It's super interesting. And he slowly became the airport guy, and he's known as the airport guy now. And he's now like a proper influencer, and all of his content is around airports and planes. Uh, so he's a bit of an extreme case. But ultimately, the beauty about LinkedIn is you can just speak about things that are happening in your world. It doesn't need to be a video, it can be just a few lines, a paragraph, it can be an article. So it's much easier.
Okay, thanks, Dana. So just we're getting closer to the end, but I still have a couple of questions. So one of them about the content. So we've covered how can someone start, and it's easier the niche. Totally agree with you, but sometimes it's so hard, especially for the generalist. If you love and this and that, and then trying to define the positioning, but that's a process and work. But what about one thing is the content, but what about engaging with the content on the platform? How important it
Glad
is
you brought this up.
for users?
Glad you brought this up, and I should have said this as well before. So even going earlier, even something I recommend everybody to do it before starting posting is engaging, right? It's commenting in people's post. This gives you a few things. One, it helps you build that habit of being active, and I think a good comment, an actual good comment, not just saying good post. It's content. People forget this. If I leave a good comment on your post, leaving my ideas or continuing the conversation, that's in a way content. So content can be many things. So that's one. Two, LinkedIn especially gives a lot of love to comments. A comment can get really far. It can help you get visibility, can help you grow. a lot of my comments have gotten more reach than posts. So that's an interesting strategy as well. And third, it's a great way to build relationships. What I always tell people, it's so obvious, and I'm surprised not many do this. I mean, many people do it. It's not a very original strategy, but let's say you, CB, I identify you as my ICP and I want to go sell to you, right? Instead of sending you a DM, which you can do and most people do it, and it can work, if I just start engaging with your posts, right? 2 weeks, I leave likes, I leave comments, but actually good comments. You would appreciate that. And I know that because I appreciate when people leave good comments and support you or engage with you or criticize you, but in a good way. And then I go and send you a DM. As I said before, you're going to respond to me probably in a more positive way, or you're going to actually respond to me. So comments, it's really that are very underutilized tool on LinkedIn. And something that we all should be doing, even the big creators, they are commenting is a big part of your LinkedIn strategy.
And what about the, let's say you're the company CEO, you have your company page and you have your own, but you're not very vocal because, you're too busy to create the content or you don't feel confident enough to be this vocal voice, but you are confident enough to, let's say, reshare company posts. Does that still work? Is there some kind of positioning or there should be some kind of balance or it's better to repost it on personal account?
Yeah, I think on that, I always recommend, and I think that's the thing, the shift that's happening. The personal always uh, has more impact than the company logo. I think that's just two things there. One is just human nature. I think we want to hear from the face, the people that are doing it, and not from a corporate logo. Unless maybe you're Monzo, or you're like a cool brand that that stands out, but most companies don't have that. So if you have limited bandwidth and resources, definitely prioritize you as an individual. Reposting is better than not doing anything at all, but it won't allow you to stand out. Yeah, I think people want to hear original content, see original thoughts. Um, but I would say for everybody that I know has a lot of priorities, I know LinkedIn is not the main priority for people are busy. Startup founders have a lot to do. But even blocking 30 minutes of your week, which I think it's realistic, you will see the ROI of maybe doing a post, leaving 10 comments on people's and sending 10 connection requests. That's a good, let's say, recipe. And in the long term, you're gonna see the impact of only doing that. So that's the beauty of LinkedIn. It's not, again, you don't need to create a YouTube video, which YouTube, I love YouTube, but I don't even know how to start doing a good YouTube video. LinkedIn, the ROI is much, much attainable.
So we're getting closer to the end. Final two questions. And what do you still enjoy about doing what you do? You've been in this role transitioning through this kind of landscape changes and technology changes and the way the industry of marketing and sales overall now operates. What do you like most about your day to day?
Question. I think I like. I'm a very like I am a social person, and I'm good. I'm good at connecting, and actually I like to help as well. So I enjoy during my time at LinkedIn, and even now as well. Like I get a chance to meet a lot of people. Now, of course, I'm more in a commercial role, but I do enjoy helping people with their strategies. I'm a big fan of content in general. So helping and for myself as well, trying to come up with good content ideas, content that drives as well ROI. So it's not just content for the sake of content. We have to understand that there has to be a reason behind it, and helping people build their brands stand out. As I think the biggest competitive advantage of today's world, and I'm not the one saying this, is really the distribution part, right? Everybody can create content nowadays. Everybody can create a product with AI. Everything is collapsing, but your brand, your personality, your unique ideas, your unique experiences, that's probably what AI won't be able to steal from you. So that's where we have to lean. And now the content creation is you can use tools, but you still need to come up with the idea with a reason behind it, with a story behind it. So that's what I'm trying to enjoy.
Amazing. That's exciting. So I have this tradition in the podcast to leave the listeners with a thought to ponder. So, to all the founders, investors, just curious people who are here with us today, what would you like them to think after they finish listening to this episode?
I would say, yeah, not to be a doomer. I'm always trying to be positive, but I know many people are aware with AI how things are changing, or jobs are at risk. But I think I would like to leave you thinking with you with we need, and I need to also, everybody has to be more. We need to have more ownership of our opportunities, and of our journeys. And it took me a while to understand that, and kind of diversify your opportunities. Even if you have a full-time job, and most people you depend on that job, which is okay. But even just posting a bit on LinkedIn or on other platforms, or writing an article, a newsletter, like, it really will open doors. That's the way I see it. I don't want to be like inspirational and say your life is gonna change and you're gonna. But just doing that a bit consistently, you are gonna attract people. You're gonna attract opportunities, and doors are gonna be open. That's why I'm speaking to you today, probably. So
Yeah, I mean,
that's what I would love to leave people. And yeah, if you need help, reach out to me, to Shake. Would love to help and discuss this further.
amazing. Thank you, Danny. We will leave the links how people can reach to you, your LinkedIn, Shake website as well, to in the episode show notes. And thank you so much, Danny, for finding time
Thank you,
and
Zivi.
sharing your knowledge. It's really great meeting you. And we met through LinkedIn. So here we go. It's just one message away. You're maybe, yeah, next podcast guest or next partner of your business. You never know. So thank you so much. And thank you everyone who joined us
Thank
today
you. This
and
was
see you
fun.
next week.
Bye.